In 1962, a home economics extension bulletin out of Lancaster County made a quiet promise to new farm wives. Bread that took 5 minutes of hands-on work and rose without a single store-bought additive. The pamphlet circulated through Mennonite and Amish kitchens for a decade, then vanished from county extension offices by the early 1970s. Not because the recipe failed, because it worked too well, and it cost almost nothing. If you've ever stood in a grocery aisle staring at a $6 loaf of artisan bread wrapped in paper to look rustic, you felt the strange tax modern life puts on something humans have made for 9,000 years. Somewhere along the way, bread got complicated. Kneading became a workout. Proofing became a science experiment with thermometers and hydration percentages. For a beginner, the whole process feels like it's designed to make you fail once and never try again. That's not an accident. It's a business model. The enemy, an industry built on your frustration. The commercial bread industry and the cookbook industry that feeds it has spent decades making bread baking look harder than it is. Complicated bread requires special flour blends, proofing boxes, stand mixers, and starter maintenance routines that read like caring for a pet. Every one of those things can be sold to you. A loaf of bread that takes 5 minutes of actual labor and costs $1.40 in ingredients cannot. Amish households never got that memo, mostly because nobody was selling them anything. Bread in Holmes County, Ohio, and Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, has been made the same unhurried way for generations. Mix it, let it rest while you do literally anything else, shape it, bake it. The 5 minutes isn't a marketing trick. It's the actual amount of hands-on time required. The dough does the rest of the work while you're milking, canning, or sitting down for supper. The cost gap reveal. A loaf of decent bakery bread now runs $5 to $7. A family of 5 going through 2 loaves a week spends roughly $700 a year just keeping bread on the table. Ruth Bontrager, who bakes for her family of 8 outside Sugar Creek, Ohio, spends about $9 a week on flour, salt, and yeast, under $470 a year, for twice the bread, made fresh instead of trucked in. The math isn't close, and it isn't because she's doing more work. She's doing far less. She mixes dough 4 times a week, in roughly 20 minutes total, and the oven does the rest. Why you didn't know this. The reason most people have never seen this method isn't secrecy, it's that it couldn't be patented, bottled, or sold as a kit. A no-knead, long-rest bread technique requires flour, water, salt, and yeast, all of which you can buy anywhere, and a method which can't be trademarked. Cookbook publishers and kitchen gadget companies make money on complexity. A recipe that says, "Stir it together and walk away," doesn't sell stand mixers, proofing baskets, or $40 bread books. So the simple version got buried under decades of improvements that mostly improved how much equipment you needed to own. Eli Schwartz and the 5-minute method. Eli Schwartz, a baker in Holmes County who's made bread for his family's table for over 30 years, describes it plainly. "My mother never owned a mixer. She owned a bowl and a wooden spoon, and she made better bread than anything I've bought since." His method, which is really just the traditional method, comes down to 4 ingredients and patience instead of effort. Method 1. The no-knead dough. Here's the part that surprises beginners most. You don't need to knead this bread at all. Kneading exists to develop gluten quickly, but gluten develops just fine on its own if you give it time instead of muscle. The science is simple. Flour proteins form gluten strands when they're hydrated and left alone. Kneading speeds that process up through mechanical force. Time does the same job for free. A wet, sticky dough left to rest for 12 to 18 hours develops the same elastic structure as a kneaded one, just on a slower clock. This isn't a new discovery. It's documented in baking literature going back to at least 1945, when wartime flour rationing pushed home bakers toward low-effort, high-yield techniques that stretched ingredients further. Eli's mother used a version of it without ever calling it anything special. It was just how bread got made on a day with chores to do. The mistake beginners make here is impatience. They see a slack, sticky dough after mixing and assume something went wrong, so they start adding flour and kneading it like a normal dough. Don't. The stickiness is the dough doing its job. Resist the urge to fix it. Method 2. The overnight rest. Ruth Bontrager mixes her dough most nights right before bed. 4 ingredients in a bowl, stirred with a spoon for less than 2 minutes, covered with a plate. By morning, it's doubled, bubbly, and ready to shape. I used to think bread needed watching, she says. Then I realized it needed the opposite. It needed me to leave the room. The cold, slow rise also does something a fast rise can't. It develops flavor. Quick rise breads taste mostly like yeast. A 12-hour-plus rise gives the natural fermentation time to produce mild acids and complex flavor compounds, the same chemistry that makes a basic sourdough taste better than a same-day loaf. You get bakery-level flavor from a process that requires you to be asleep for most of it. The warning here: don't let it rise somewhere too warm, like on top of a stove or near a wood furnace. A too fast rise overworks the yeast, and the bread will taste flat and collapse when baked. Room temperature, out of direct heat, for the full overnight stretch. Method 3. The Dutch oven crust. Jacob Miller, who bakes bread weekly for his family near Wayne County, swears by a heavy cast-iron pot with a lid as the entire secret to bakery-style crust. People pay extra for a crust like this, he says, and all it costs is a lid that traps steam. The science. A hot, enclosed pot traps the moisture released by the dough as it bakes. That trapped steam keeps the crust soft just long enough for the loaf to fully expand. Then the high heat crisps it hard and golden in the final minutes. It's the same principle commercial bakeries use industrial steam injection ovens to achieve. Jacob's grandfather just used a pot lid instead, decades before anyone branded the technique artisan. This method goes back further than most people assume. Cast-iron Dutch ovens were standard kitchen equipment across rural Pennsylvania by the 1880s, and bread baked this way over a wood stove predates electric ovens by a wide margin. The technique didn't change when electricity arrived, it just got forgotten by people who switched to thin metal loaf pans because they were cheaper to manufacture and sell in bulk. The common mistake: not heating the pot before the dough goes in. A cold Dutch oven gives you a pale, soft crust with none of the crackle. Heat the pot in the oven for a full 30 minutes before baking. It's an extra step, but it's the difference between bread and bakery bread. Method 4. Reading dough without a thermometer. Amos Yoder, who has taught his grandchildren to bake without a single digital tool in the kitchen, judges dough readiness by touch and sound alone. A thermometer tells you a number, he says. Your finger tells you the truth. The science behind his method is straightforward. Properly risen dough holds a dent when poked, rather than springing back fully or collapsing. Press a finger into the dough about half an inch. If it springs back immediately, it needs more time. If it stays dented and doesn't collapse, it's ready. If it collapses, it's over-risen, though it can often still be baked, it'll just be denser and less open inside. For checking if a loaf is fully baked, Amos taps the bottom of the loaf with a knuckle. A hollow, drum-like sound means it's done. A dull thud means it needs more time in the oven. This method has been documented in rural cookbooks since at least the 1920s and works regardless of oven type, altitude, or humidity, all the variables that throw off a thermometer reading anyway. The mistake beginners make is cutting into the loaf the moment it comes out of the oven. Bread is still cooking internally from residual heat for the first 20 minutes after baking. Cut too early, and you'll get a gummy interior even from a perfectly baked loaf. Ruth's rule in her kitchen is simple. No bread gets cut until it's been out of the oven for at least 20 minutes. No exceptions, no matter how good it smells. Putting it together. The full method, stitched from what Ruth, Eli, Jacob, and Amos each contribute, looks like this. Stir together flour, water, salt, and a small amount of yeast until it forms a sticky, ragged dough, no kneading. Cover it and let it sit at room temperature for 12 to 18 hours. In the morning, shape it gently into a ball, Let it rest covered for 30 more minutes, then drop it into a Dutch oven that's been preheating for 30 minutes at high heat. Bake covered for 30 minutes, then uncovered for another 15 to 20 until the crust is deep golden and the bottom sounds hollow when tapped. Let it cool, untouched, for 20 minutes before cutting. Total hands-on time: about 5 minutes of mixing, 2 minutes of shaping, and a few seconds tapping the bottom of a loaf. Everything else is the dough working while you live your life. Why this still matters. None of this requires a single piece of equipment you don't already own or can't buy secondhand for a few dollars. No stand mixer, no proofing basket, no instant read thermometer, no specialty flour. 4 ingredients most kitchens already stock: a bowl, a pot with a lid, and time. That's the entire list. It's worth sitting with why a method this simple, this cheap, and this reliable isn't the default way bread gets taught anymore. The honest answer is that it doesn't need to be taught by anyone selling something. Ruth didn't learn this from a class. Eli didn't learn it from a book with his name nowhere near the byline. They learned it the way it's been passed down for generations, in a kitchen, from someone older, for free. Tell me in the comments, does your family still make bread this way, or some version of it? Some of the best discoveries on this channel have come from stories shared right here, and I'd love to know if your grandmother's method matches Ruth's, or if she did something completely different with the same 4 ingredients.